Welcome back to the channel. It's a lovely day today, and really feels like the first proper day of spring today. So I think even under normal circumstances, there's a number of motorcyclists who have maybe had the bike in the garage over the winter who would definitely be thinking of dusting it off and coming out today. But added to that is the fact that we are just at the start of the process of slowly coming out of lockdown in the UK. This is the first week where there's been a minor reduction in the restrictions. So I'm not going to go into all the legislation and everything, but basically we can get out a bit more, meet a few people in public, things like that. So again, that's going to be something that's going to encourage motorcyclists to get the bikes out of the garage, get out on the road, and why not? It's a lovely day today to get out on the bike. But I wanted to just do a little video for those people. He might be one of them. I'm not getting many nods off people at the moment. I don't know what it is. Some pretty unfriendly motorcyclists out there. Maybe they're just concentrating too hard, which isn't a bad thing. Yeah, so I thought I'd do a little video for people who might be getting the bike out for the first time this spring, who might not have ridden for a few months. Some of the stuff I'm going to talk about is probably relevant to people who might be returning to motorcycling after a number of years as well. But this is predominantly aimed at people who are, may have put the bike away last September, October. The people who avoid riding through the worst of winter. Yeah, another one. Nobody's nodding. I think they're all gawping. They're all gawping at the scaffolding on my back that holds this high-level camera. So, if you've looked at the weather forecast, you've looked at the slightly lighter evenings after the clocks have changed and thought, right, that's it, I'm getting the bike out. Just do yourself a favour and give it a little bit of thought. This isn't going to be a patronising video. This isn't going to be all about take your time and minimise risk and all that kind of stuff. This is genuinely about the things you need to think about if you're getting back on the bike after after some time off it. The saying is, it's like riding a bike, you never forget. And yes it is, and no it isn't. So the first thing I want you to think about is that your skills now, if this is the first time you're getting your bike out, are not the same as they were when you put it away last autumn. So last autumn you've been on the bike regularly, been practicing. You might not like to think of it as practicing, but every time you ride the bike you learn something, you improve. But then a few months away from it, it's easy to get a little bit rusty. It's easy for, I don't mean the bike getting rusty, it's easy for you and your skills to get a little bit rusty. And it's worth just reminding yourself of a few things before you get out and ride properly. First thing, and I suspect you were expecting this, but the first thing is just give the bike a once over. If it's been stood not being ridden for 6 months, check the oil, check there isn't a puddle under it, make sure there's a lot of, there's enough coolant in it. Check the lights, and especially give the tyres a good check. Put the bike on its centre stand, rotate the tyres, check them round. Make sure the tread depth is okay, make sure there's enough pressure in them. You know the score. I'm not going to patronise you too much with that, but it's been sat for 6 months. If I was sat down for 6 months, not moving, a few of my bits will start to be getting rusty. So yeah, check the bike over, give it the once over. A lot of people get the bike serviced once a year in spring. If that's your thing, get it booked in, get it serviced. The other thing you want to check is the brakes. You absolutely want to know that the brakes are working when you get on the bike. So, if you put it away wet last time, there's a chance that the pads now are seized onto the disc. That's easy enough to free off. But just make sure there's no hydraulic fluid leaking out or anything like that. Give the brakes a good static brake test, front and rear, give them a good squeeze. Make sure there's plenty of resistance in the levers and the pedal. Then the first time you take the bike out, just do a little bit of a rolling brake test, just at low speed. Separately first, front brake, then the rear brake, then both together. Make sure you get a good feel that the brakes are firm and doing what they should be doing. So what about when you go out for your first ride? Well, you know, this will sound pretty obvious, but just take it easy for the first hour or two, just as you get your eye in. You do need to get your eye back in. You need to get a feel for your bike, you need to get comfortable and relaxed on the bike. So, you know, just try and remind yourself, don't get too tense, don't grip the bars to death, because then you get tension in your forearms and in your upper arms, and that translates itself up to your shoulders, and you end up sitting on the bike really rigid, and you're not in the best position to control the bike then if you're really stiff and rigid. So try to get relaxed. Easiest way to do that is not to put yourself under any additional pressure, so that's why I'm saying take it easy for the first hour or two. You know, loosen your shoulders up. For those gentlemen and ladies amongst us who are a certain age, you know, you've got to get your hips back into it again, and you know, you've got to get used to having your legs in this position. So by all means head out, national speed limit roads and stuff, but don't get after it first. Get yourself relaxed. The other thing about getting your eye in is, you know, it's easy just to look down and you look down at the front of the bike and just look at everything that's just in the immediate vicinity around us. Don't do that. Get your head up. Get your head up, looking in the far distance, looking in your mirrors and shoulders. Remember to get back into that routine of mirrors and shoulders. It is a routine. These are the sort of things, you know, you don't forget how to physically ride the bike, but it is easy to forget, you know, the basics of mirrors and shoulders, maintaining a zone of relative safety around us, a safety bubble, and double checking all the time there's nothing over that right shoulder, over that left shoulder when you're turning at junctions. Those little lifesaver checks, they're called lifesavers for a reason. If you've been driving over winter especially, it's easy to forget that kind of stuff. So as you're relaxing into the ride, you know, get plenty of shoulder checks, plenty of mirror checks in. And it's not a bad term to use, routine. You know, there's little routines that we do when we ride the bike, when we do a left turn, when we do a right turn, little routines of where you look and what you should be doing. You need to get back in the habit of doing those little routines, looking around you. Now there's another thing I really need to point out to you that's highly relevant at the moment if you are returning to motorcycling for the first time this year, and it's relevant to lockdown and COVID, and that is that you're not the only one who's having the first ride or drive out this year. Quite a lot of people have still been using the roads throughout lockdown, but a large amount of people have not. A large amount of people have only been doing very local runs just to the shops and things like that. They've not been commuting as normal. And what I'm finding now, just as we start getting back out on the road again, is that driving standards and some riding standards as well are pretty poor at the moment, not where they were before lockdown came in 12 months ago. Yes, the roads are a bit quieter at the moment, but the driving standards are pretty poor. So just be wary, just be of the view that, you know, not everybody's out to deliberately get you, but go and have a look at my last video about making mistakes. They might not mean to make these mistakes, but they could be putting you at risk, so hold back a little bit. It's not just you that's getting back into it again, it's a lot of the people that are around you at the moment. If you go riding where there are beauty spots or where it's popular for people to be walking, at the moment the parking, especially at weekends around those areas, is absolutely horrendous. It's sort of the only kind of places that people can go. So of course they go there en masse, don't they, at weekend, everybody together. I've seen it in the news a few times, Duffstone's Reservoir up near Oldham, some areas in the Peak District, North Wales, places like that, overrun with people parking really badly. So a lot of the authorities, the park authorities there, have shut the car parks. That was as a hint for people to stay away, but what they then do is just abandon the cars anywhere they want. So you know, if you go into you're gonna have a ride out to your favourite spots, be really wary. The really badly parked cars will be just off the blind bend, won't they? and of course there'll be somebody on the other side of the road coming straight towards you. The roads themselves are worth a mention. The roads are in a pretty poor state at the moment, and we had a really cold snap January time, and I've noticed that there are some roads that I use regularly that have really taken a hit from the winter damage, that have really been damaged by the frost. So if you haven't ridden on your favourite road for the last 6 months, do not expect it to be in the same condition next time you go and ride on it. Now if I have a break from riding the bike, I'm one of these idiotic people who ride the bike all year round, so I never really have a very long break from riding the bike. But you know, with everything that's been going on, I haven't ridden this bike for a week. Been out for a week on it, so I've started to notice the things that I just need to work on for a short time, build back up again. One of those is I tend to be a little bit rough with the gear change and with the clutch. First time I get on the bike, I tend to just, you know, jump off the clutch or release the clutch rather than easing it through the biting point. So as any good instructor should, I always try and get ahead of myself and think, right, come on, keep it smooth, keep the clutch smooth. Necessarily bang the gear change through, just click it through rather than bang it through. I'm going to do a video shortly on use of gears and gear changing and how it fits in with the system of bike control. But one of the little tips there is just try and click it through rather than stomp it through or bang it through the gearbox. You'll get a much better reaction from the gears. And of course it's smoother, keeps your ride smoother, which is safer, and it's more mechanically sympathetic as well. So don't forget the basics of good cornering as well. I'm just trundling along at 30 at the moment, but every time I tip the bike into a corner, counter steering, pushing the inside bar away from me a little bit. So for instance here, just pushing the handlebar away from me a little bit just to get the bike turned into the corner. And remember, we don't want to be too early on that gas in the corner. We don't want to unsettle the bike. We want a little bit of positive acceleration into the corner just to keep the rear compressed and keep the speed where it is. And then after that, as the corner opens up, you can start winding the gas on then. But if you're dusting your bike off this weekend and bringing it out, this is what you're coming out to do, isn't it? Get on a nice national speed limit road. And the temptation is always to really just wind the bike up and move it on nice and quick. But honestly, just build up to it. If I go out for a ride for the sake of it, I have two aims for the day. One is I want to enjoy the ride. Two is I want to get home for my tea without too much paperwork to fill in. Now, I want to make a mention about group riding as well. I don't really ride in groups. I've nothing against it, absolutely not. I can completely see the appeal of having a ride out with your friends and enjoying it. But there are some inherent risks to riding in a group, and it's psychology of it really more than anything. I know there's some good IAM groups who go out doing well organised group riding. And the pheasant. But there are also some groups of motorcyclists out there, shall we say, who frighten me to death. So if you're going to go out in a group on a ride, this will sound a bit farty this, but I don't mean it to, get yourselves organised. Make sure the rider at the front knows the route and sets the pace. The problem for the people at the back is if the front person sets the pace too quick, then the people at the back end up having to go really quick trying to keep up. So your front person in the group needs to set the pace, needs to know the route, and needs to keep a good eye on what's happening behind. Then every member of the group then needs to keep an eye on the person behind. And telling Charlie, the person right at the back, I would tend to pick the most experienced rider to go at the back there, because there's less temptation then to go doing silly overtakes, trying to catch up with the rest of the group. If you're somebody who enjoys going out riding in a group, just be wary that you still need to ride your own ride. So I know that some people get on sort of intercom groups, don't they, chatting to each other. Somebody at the front will get an overtake on and say, yeah, it's on for you. Now you might know that person really well, but do you absolutely trust them making a decision about an overtake that you're going to commit to? Not so sure I would. So even if you get confirmation over the intercom, the radio, whatever, saying, yeah, this overtake's on, make the decision for yourself, take some responsibility. And please don't just follow each other into an overtake. It's on for the front person, might be on for number 2, might even be on for number 3. Get to number 4 and it's starting to get a bit thin. Make your own decision. There's no points to be scored in group riding. This is why I'm suggesting you get, you know, somebody quite experienced at the front and back just to set the pace. And one thing I didn't mention earlier was your kit, and checking your kit's okay. It's funny, isn't it, you know, well, a few months off the motorbike, oh, your leathers shrink, don't they? Is it me? Do your leathers shrink? Yeah, make sure your kit's fitting well, give your helmet a clean, make sure your visor's free of scratches. Sort of jobs that you put on, you put the bike and the helmet away, think to yourself, I've got a new visor in spring. They do get scratched up over time, don't they? And they, you know, they're a consumable really over time. So make sure your kit still fits and it's up to scratch. I think helmets have a shelf life, don't they, of about 5 or 6 years. I'm always sceptical about stuff like that. I always think, well, they're just trying to sell more helmets, but it seems to be a common theme, that it seems to be advice from a lot of quarters is swap your helmet every 5 or 6 years. So, you know, if you've had it a few years, give yourself a treat. But what about when you're up to speed? What about when you feel like, right, okay, you know, I've given myself a couple of hours here, I'm relaxed on the bike, I've got my eye in, I'm looking in the right place, I've got into my routines of mirrors and shoulders, I've got my eye in the distance. There's a nice little stretch of national speed limit road and I'm going to have to have a little bit of a blast. Anything else you need to bear in mind? Well, let's go and find a favourite little stretch of national speed limit road and let's have a little bit of a wind on, and I'll talk you through what I'm thinking. So when you get on your nice favourite little bit of national speed limit road, first tip I'd give you is don't get complacent just because you know the road itself. I noticed that it's very easy to fall into the trap when you know a road really well, just to look in the same place. You know where the views are, you know where the corners are, you know how tight they are, and you know it like the back of your hand. The risk with that is you miss something. So even if it's a road that you know really well, try and ride it as though you don't know the road. You tend to find yourself, so here for instance, you tend to find yourself then looking right earlier and possibly getting the overtaking off the bend. It's not on at the moment, but there are real advantages to riding the road as though you don't know it. The next thing is, when you're behind something a bit slower, don't get frustrated. Keep you cool. Don't get drawn into that typical motorcyclist following position of getting right up the chuff right on the back corner like that. Doesn't do you any good, that. And actually, you know, other road users don't like that either. It makes them uncomfortable and get some bad reactions sometimes. So hang back, wait, remember, and it's easy to forget when you've been off the bike for a bit, remember just how quick they are. and just how easy it is to overtake on a bike. No problem at all. Hanging back for 30 seconds a lot of the time gives you a whole range more of advantages than getting pushy. I'm going to go back through my motorcycling videos. You'll find one from last year where I talked in great detail about overtaking and how to do it from the following position and where to look for the view and things like that. So, you know, if you're planning on going out at the weekend, maybe dig some of those old videos out. And then once you've got the road to yourself, remember the basics of cornering, position on approach. Offside towards the white centre line for a left-hander. Best part of the near side on approach to a right-hander. Position, speed and gear. Roll the bike in with a little bit of counter steer. And a little bit of positive throttle. What I suppose what I'd call a neutral throttle. Just enough throttle to keep the speed where it is, so you don't slow down through the corner. Once the bike's tipped in, once you can see the limit point moving away, and you're about to start leaning the bike upright again, you can wind that throttle on and accelerate out of the bend. Remember, it's always easier to put speed on through a corner than it is to take it off. So especially when you're getting back to motorcycling, when you're getting back into it, put a jacket on, fella. Especially when you're getting back into it, go with slow in and quick out. So yeah, that cautious approach, slow in, quick out. Always make sure you can stop in that distance you can see to be clear. That's how we use the limit point. Again, it's in the videos I've mentioned before. And as the speeds pick up, don't try and break any records first time you get a bit of open road. Build up to it. You'll probably find it won't take long. Just don't get carried away, please. We've got all summer ahead of us. We've got a summer of relaxed lockdown regulations. A summer of actually being able to get out on the bike and use it. So don't put yourself off the road for the next 6 months with an injury. A bit of waste of the summer. It'll be 18 months before you're riding again if you do that. One other little tip as well, when you've been having a bit of a blast or when you've been riding the bike at higher speeds, remember just how quick they are, these things. When you get back to a speed limit area like this, so 50 into a 40, it's very easy just to forget how bloody quickly these things accelerate. You could easily be up to 80 before that 40 sign there, if not a lot more actually, to be honest. So as you come out of those national speed limit areas, just remind yourself, because you can bet that as you get your bike out and everybody else gets the bikes out, the speed camera partnerships will also be dusting their mobile camera vans off as well. Now, I have seen them quite a bit over winter as well. It's not to say they're not out in winter, but you can guarantee places like the Yorkshire Dales, North Wales, they'll be taking those camera vans out to the places that are popular with motorcyclists and with drivers. So again, You don't want to spoil your whole summer with a prosecution for a big speed, do you? Build up to it. So that's it for this video. Just a few little hints and tips to help you if you're returning to motorcycling after a winter break, especially now as the COVID regulations are relaxed. You might have had to wait longer than you would normally before you get your bike out. Ease yourself into it. No prizes to be won out here. Don't spoil the rest of your summer. If you've got any other tips, share them in the comments below. I'm sure I must have forgotten some, and there'll be other things that I've missed as well that I hadn't even thought of. So by all means, stick them in the comments below. Share them with the other viewers. But that's it. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video and you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Get an update. If you press the notifications button, you get an update every time I upload a new video. And of course, we're coming out of lockdown, so there's going to be more and more videos coming now through spring and into summer. Is there anything you particularly want me to do a video about? I've got a list of ideas, but you know, if you want to suggest something, again, stick them in the comments below. Don't forget to go and have a look at the website as well, reglocal.com. Loads more information there about advanced driving and riding. Information about the books that I've written are available on Amazon, and about how you can get a day's driver or rider coaching with me if you so wish. Really, some really unfriendly motorcyclists out at the moment. I think of all the bikes I've seen today, I've had 2 nods. Maybe it's because I ride a GS now, maybe that's what it is. They just think what I used to think about GS riders. If you are after a day's driver or rider coaching, please bear in mind I only do it at weekends, and I am pretty booked up through to August. So I'm going to get something in for this year. Contact me now. Get it in the diary. Don't want you missing out. But for now, thanks very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. We'll enjoy the rest of this ride, even though we're on this miserable 50 limit road. And we'll see you next time.